Hi, my name's Karen Scholl. You know, with a program called Horsemanship for Women, one of the most common questions I get is how do women handle this common issue of fear? Now, fear is an interesting subject with lots and lots of information around it. And what I wanted to do is just do a short segment here to give people some ideas and possibilities on how I handle and approach fear. Of course, I can't tell you in 5 minutes how you can go about doing this, but I want to give you the understanding that it can be done. So many times what people think is if they have fear, then they just need to have more courage. They need to try harder. They need to just keep putting themselves out there and do it. There's an element of try in it, but you can keep trying, doing the same thing over and over, and if you don't have the tools and the knowledge behind it, it's going to continue to be a frustrating subject for you. So the thing around horses that I like to point out, it's kind of the obvious, is that horses being prey animals, they'll see anything new, different, unusual, and they won't come up and go, hey, wow, that's kind of cool. The first time I brought this ball out just a couple minutes ago, this whole herd of horses just bolted for the far side of the pasture. So now I've been out here about 10 minutes, and there's a wonderful saying that the opposite of fear is curiosity. So the horse, being a prey animal, is designed first by nature to go and get out of here. And if they survive, then they'll come back and the curiosity will start taking over. So it's interesting that horses can be so afraid of something, but really very quickly move to the more curious and playful side of things as well. To me, fear is a survival mechanism not only in the horse, but in the human, and especially as women. So when women are dealing with horses, they see the potential. They see the potential for these horses to cause them physical harm, and not that they would do it on purpose, but probably an accident. The horse perceives something as danger, is going to react to try to save its life, and then we just happen to be in the way. So to me, what fear is doing is saving our lives. So if you've ever been frustrated by your fear, I have good news for you. You can understand right now that fear is saving your life. But it doesn't mean you have to just sit and live with it. What fear is it's an invitation to replace it with knowledge. Whenever we don't have knowledge in an area, we fear it. So anything that's new, different, sudden, or abrupt causes us to have a fear reaction. It's natural to have that. There's a wonderful book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that it's a wonderful explanation of this mechanism of fear and recognizing it for what it is and then being able to move through it. So really the short little segment is to give you the understanding that there is the possibility of you moving through your fear simply by applying that principle that knowledge replaces fear. As your experience grows, knowledge takes over, and you don't do anything with your fear. You don't try to suppress it. It just simply doesn't exist anymore because you have so much knowledge, you have so much experience, you have so much preparation that these situations don't alarm you. Now, one of the things that's really kind of the tricky one with horses is when people say, well, I'm uncomfortable going out alone on my horse, or going out in a big group, or riding outside the arena, or riding inside the arena, or riding outside of a pen. Fill in the blank, and never ride on a windy day. The reason you have that fear is because deep down inside, your survival mechanism is saying you don't have the skill set at this point in time to be able to respond appropriately the instant something goes wrong. And I used to say if something goes wrong with horses, but it's really when something goes wrong. And all I mean by going wrong is that all of a sudden your horse's survival mechanism replaces what communication you did have. So if you could go backwards in time and take your horse and just expand the communication with your horse. Take situations and simulations and expose your horse to as many things as possible. Then you don't have the fear of doing those situations because instinctively your body knows I have the muscle memory and the reflexes to respond without thinking and do the right thing. And as we know, pulling on 2 reins isn't the right thing to do. In fact, it empowers a horse to actually go faster. Race horses, they pull on both reins and it engages the hindquarters. So we know that that isn't necessarily our best bet when something goes wrong. So when you back up and start rebuilding all that with a horse, boy, what's it going to feel like when you and your horse are so prepared, you have a communication and a conversation that you can have even when things are going wrong. And you know that you'll have the wherewithal and the habits to keep engaged with your horse, to keep your wits about you, to keep thinking until you get through that little spot in that situation. And everybody knows with horses, it's really just a matter of time. But we love these horses so much, that's where our struggle is. We love these horses, but we have this fear. How do we deal with it? So I wanted to address that because it's a subject that can be very, very complicated, and you can get involved in it, and people can dwell on it and actually cause you to have even more fear than when you started. Another fear mechanism is when women get to an age where we're in our childbearing years. I hear this all the time. Women say, well, gosh, when I was a kid, I was fearless. What's happened? It's my observation that when women get to a certain age, whether we have children or not, all of a sudden it's not just about our well-being and safety anymore. It's about our ability to care for our family. So when women have children, all of a sudden we go, ooh, you know what? I'm not going to ski that double black diamond today because who's going to pick up the baby if I get hurt? And this is a very real mechanism. Again, I think it's nature's way to put a survival instinct into us so that it helps us. So if I can go clear back to the beginning and consider all the things that I've said, maybe you can begin to understand how fear is your friend. And then I invite you to replace that fear with knowledge. If you want to. If you want to keep dwelling in it, some people I've seen them kind of wear it as a badge of honor. They've been bucked off and hurt and drug, and that's okay too. But if you want to move through it, you genuinely want to move through it, what you'll do is start doing things with horses to start having a conversation. So you see these horses kind of sniffing at me here. They didn't want anything to do with me a little bit ago, and now they're going, oh, I just can't stand it. What's she doing over there? What you can do with this is start building your communication with your horse first on the ground, and I teach people how to take it up onto the horse's back, how to build your confidence by expanding, number one, your leadership with horses. And that's another subject that women have a hard time with horses. We have a hard time being in a leadership role. So with horses, you can see that they want to go up and sniff each other. They're pretty curious about each other, but it doesn't take long before one horse goes, ah! And kicks at the other horse. Instantly, that horse falls in love with the horse that squealed at him and kicked him. Women don't understand this, but that's a leadership aspect to things. So when you get into trouble out there with horses, I should have known it was the donkey. But what happens is when we get into the leadership position with horses, they start looking to us for the direction and for the answers. And not just when everything's, rainbows and butterflies, but when things start going wrong. So leadership, confidence, and trust are the 3 stages that I teach in my program. But I hope that this gives you a little better understanding of what's going on when you're having these emotions of fear and trying to deal with it, trying to overcome it. It's really an important thing to overcome. We want to enjoy these horses. So please accept my invitation to replace that fear with knowledge. And one day you will, I hope you'll email me or write me a note and say, you know what, Karen, you were right. I no longer am afraid of my horse. That is my greatest reward. That is one of the major reasons I do what I do. Believe me, there are easier jobs. But I love doing what I do because I know that you love horses as much as I do. That's a given. We wouldn't be in this if we didn't. But to have that kind of communication and connection with these animals and not be afraid of them, I think is one of the greatest gifts that I can share with you. And it's something I've had to move through myself. So I want to be able to share that perspective with you and to give you that gift. Because the horses in our lives, they're too special to us to have to be dealing with that element of fear all the time. So hopefully this gives you an understanding, and even if it's just a ray of hope and a beginning for you to be able to move through your fear, move into knowledge with horses, and really to be able to live your dream with horses.